Okay, picture this. The world outside is finally quiet, you're all tucked in, maybe even feeling pretty tired, and then boom, your brain just kicks into high gear.
Right.
Thoughts are bouncing all over the place, worries pop up, and sleep, the thing you really want, feels impossible. Does that ring a bell for you?
Oh, absolutely. It's such a strange thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sleep is, fundamental. We need it. We
Yeah.
actually want to surrender to it.
Yeah.
And yet, sometimes it's just so incredibly hard to get there.
Yeah.
It really makes you ask, why do we actually sleep? What's the point?
And why is something so natural sometimes so difficult?
Exactly. Why the struggle?
Well, that's what we're diving into today. We're going to unpack the whole world of sleep. Everything from like that first yawn
Mm-hmm.
all the way through dreams, and definitely tackling those nights where sleep just won't come and what we can maybe do about it.
Yeah, think of this as getting a look behind the curtain. We'll use the science, the research, to shed some light on this really vital part of being human.
Okay, let's get into it. The really big question first. Why? Why do we actually need sleep?
It's fascinating when you stop and think about it. We basically become unconscious,
Right? Totally vulnerable.
completely vulnerable, dependent. And yet, you see this pattern of rest across almost the entire animal kingdom. I mean, right down to simple organisms like jellyfish.
Jellyfish.
Yeah.
Really? They need downtime too.
Apparently so. It suggests this is something incredibly ancient, evolutionarily speaking, a core necessity.
Okay, jellyfish aside, for humans, what's happening? What are the critical jobs being done while we're out?
Well, one of the biggest jobs is housekeeping for the brain. Seriously.
Housekeeping.
Yeah, think of it like a nightly cleaning crew. While you sleep, the brain works to clear out metabolic waste products that build up during the day when you're thinking and doing things.
Huh. So waste products actually build up.
They do. And there's some really interesting research looking at how sleep helps clear out specific proteins, like beta amyloid, which is linked to things like Alzheimer's disease. That clearance seems much more efficient during sleep.
Wow. So it's not just passive rest, it's active cleaning. That's quite thought. What else?
Okay, another huge one is memory and learning. Sleep is absolutely critical for strengthening neural connections.
How does that work?
Well, during the day, as you learn things, experience things, you form temporary connections in your brain. Sleep, especially certain stages of it, helps consolidate these connections, making them more stable, more permanent.
So it's like paving the roads in your brain, making information easier to access later.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
It helps solidify what you've learned. It improves recall and skill retention.
Which explains why pulling an all-nighter before an exam is maybe not the best strategy.
Definitely not optimal. Your brain hasn't had that crucial consolidation time.
Right. And it's not just the brain, is it?
Not at all. Sleep impacts our entire body. Hormone regulation is a big one. Hormones controlling appetite, stress levels, energy. Sleep helps keep those in balance.
Ah, so lack of sleep can make you hungrier or more stressed.
It absolutely can. And then there's the immune system. Sleep is prime time for immune function repairing cells, building defenses. Consistently skimping on sleep can definitely weaken your immune response.
Making you more likely to catch that cold going around the office.
Exactly. And physically, too. Muscle repair, tissue growth, replenishing cellular energy stores. It all happens during sleep.
So it's really not like switching off a computer.
No, not at all. It's more like switching modes from performance mode to deep maintenance and restoration mode. Like plugging in your phone overnight, it's not off. It's actively recharging and optimizing.
Okay, that's a really helpful way to think about it. So sleep is clearly doing a ton of essential work. Now, when we fall asleep, is it just one long blackout period?
Not even close. Sleep has this really intricate structure, almost like architecture. It's made of different stages that cycle through, repeating several times a night.
Sleep architecture, I like that. So walk us through the stages. What's the first step?
We usually start with stage one. This is very light sleep. It's that transition phase, where you're just drifting off.
That feeling like you might be awake, might be asleep, maybe your leg jerks.
Exactly. Those muscle twitches, sometimes called hypnic jerks, or that feeling of falling that often happens in stage one, it's pretty brief.
Okay, so we drift through stage one, then what?
Then you move into stage two. This is still considered light sleep, but you're definitely asleep now. Your heart rate slows down, your body temperature drops a bit.
Getting ready for the deeper stuff.
Precisely. Your brain waves slow down too, though you still get these little bursts of rapid activity called sleep spindles. Stage two actually makes up a pretty big chunk of our total sleep time.
Interesting. Okay, so after stage two.
Comes stage 3. This is deep sleep, often called slow wave sleep because of the dominant brainwave pattern. This is the really restorative stuff.
This is the prime time for all that repair and recharging we talked about.
Exactly. Physical restoration, tissue growth, immune system, strengthening a lot of that peaks during stage 3 deep sleep. It's also the hardest stage to wake someone up from.
And if you do get woken up from stage three,
You'll likely feel really groggy, disoriented. That feeling is called sleep inertia.
yeah.
It can take a while to shake off.
Okay, that makes total sense. I've definitely felt that. So, stage 1, 2, 3. What's the last one?
The last stage is REM sleep. REM stands for rapid eye movement.
Because your eyes move?
Yeah, behind your closed eyelids, your eyes dart back and forth quite rapidly.
Mm.
Fascinating. This is the stage most associated with vivid dreaming.
The movie theater of the mind stage.
You could say that. Interestingly, during REM, your brain activity looks remarkably similar to when you're awake, very active. But your major muscles are temporarily paralyzed, likely to prevent you from acting out your dreams.
Whoa, so brain's buzzing, body's still. What's REM sleep for?
It seems crucial for cognitive functions like learning, memory consolidation, especially emotional memories, and also for emotional regulation and even creativity, processing the day's experiences, perhaps.
So it's doing mental and emotional housekeeping, maybe?
That's a good way to put it. And these stages 1, 2, 3 in REM don't just happen once. They cycle.
Cycle how?
You typically go from light sleep into deep sleep, then back into lighter sleep, and then into REM. That whole cycle takes roughly 90 minutes.
90 minutes, and that repeats.
Yes, usually about 4 to 6 times throughout a typical night. Though the amount of time spent in deep sleep versus REM sleep changes across the cycles. You get more deep sleep earlier in the night and more REM sleep towards the morning.
Which explains why waking up at different times feels so different. Like you said, waking from deep sleep is rough.
Right, whereas waking up from light sleep, stage 1 or 2, or even sometimes REM, often feels much easier, more natural.
Okay, that paints a much clearer picture of the journey we take each night. So we know why we sleep and what happens. But what actually triggers that feeling of sleepiness? What tells our body, okay, time to start shutting down?
There are 2 main biological systems driving that. The first one involves a chemical called adenosine.
Adenosine.
As your brain cells use energy throughout the day, adenosine is produced as a kind of byproduct, and it gradually builds up in your brain.
Like a sleepiness chemical accumulating.
Exactly. The longer you're awake, the more adenosine builds up and the more sleep pressure you feel. It basically signals to your brain that it's time to rest. Caffeine, by the way, works by blocking adenosine receptors.
That's why coffee wakes us up. It stops the sleepiness signal from getting through.
Precisely. So that's sleep pressure. The other major driver is your circadian rhythm.
Our internal body clock, right?
Exactly. It's like a master clock in your brain, located in an area called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. It runs on roughly a 24-hour cycle and controls loads of things, including when you naturally feel alert and when you start to feel sleepy.
And this clock is influenced by things around us.
Hugely. Light is the main cue, especially natural sunlight.
How does light affect it?
When light hits your eyes, particularly in the morning, it sends a signal to your SCN that basically says, it's daytime, time to be awake and active.
Okay.
Then, as light levels decrease in the evening, that signals the SCN to start preparing for sleep. This triggers the release of melatonin.
The famous sleep hormone.
Right. Melatonin doesn't instantly knock you out, but it helps promote drowsiness and signals to your body that it's nighttime, time to wind down.
So morning light helps set the clock, and darkness helps trigger the winding down process.
Exactly. Which is why getting some sun exposure early in the day is so beneficial for regulating your sleep cycle.
And why looking at bright screens late at night is so bad for sleep.
Precisely. The blue light emitted by phones, tablets, computers, even TVs is particularly potent at tricking your brain.
Tricking it how?
It essentially mimics daylight. So your SCN gets this signal that says, hey, it's still daytime, even when it's 11 p.m. This suppresses melatonin production and makes it much harder to fall asleep.
Our modern habits are really fighting against our biology there.
In many ways, yes. Our internal clocks evolved over millennia based on natural light-dark cycles. Modern life, with artificial light and constant stimulation, often throws those natural rhythms completely out of whack.
Which leads us nicely into the next big question. What are the main things that mess up our sleep? You mentioned screens and blue light.
That's a huge one. And we talk about caffeine. Its effects can last much longer than people think. The half-life of caffeine is typically around 5 to 6 hours, but it varies. So that 3 p.m. coffee could easily still be impacting you at 9 or 10 p.m.
Wow, half-life of 5 to 6 hours. That's longer than I thought. Okay, screens, caffeine. What else?
Stress and anxiety are massive sleep disruptors.
Tell me about it.
When you're stressed or anxious, your body goes into fight or flight mode. The sympathetic nervous system gets activated. It releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline.
Which is basically the opposite of the calm state you need for sleep.
Exactly. Your body is primed for action, not rest. It makes it incredibly hard to wind down and drift off when your mind is racing with worries or your body feels tense.
Yeah, that feeling of being tired but wired.
That's a perfect description. Another common one is eating large meals or drinking a lot of fluids too close to bedtime.
Why is that disruptive?
While digestion is an active process, if your body is busy digesting a heavy meal, it can interfere with falling asleep and staying asleep, particularly getting into those deeper stages. And lots of fluids might mean waking up to use the bathroom.
Right. And you mentioned something called social jet lag earlier.
Yes, this is becoming increasingly recognized. It's the difference between your sleep schedule on work days versus free days.
Like staying up late and sleeping in on weekends.
Exactly. That constant shifting back and forth confuses your internal circadian rhythm. It's like putting your body through mini jet lag every week. It can make Mondays feel extra rough and generally destabilize your sleep patterns.
That makes so much sense. It really feels like that sometimes. So we have these biological and lifestyle factors. But there's also a mental game to sleep, isn't there? That lying awake, mind racing.
Absolutely. The psychology of sleep, or lack thereof, is incredibly important. Often, difficulty sleeping comes down to a feeling or lack of feeling of safety.
Safety, how so?
Think about it. Sleep is a state of profound vulnerability. You're unconscious, unaware. For your nervous system to allow that to happen, to really let go, it needs to perceive that you're fundamentally safe.
Okay.
If your mind is churning with worries, bills, relationships, work deadlines, existential angst, whatever it is, your brain can interpret that mental agitation as a sign of threat. Like, things aren't okay. It's not safe to be vulnerable right now. And so it keeps you awake, vigilant.
So my anxiety about not sleeping could actually be preventing me from sleeping because my brain thinks the anxiety itself is a reason to stay awake.
That's often a big part of the vicious cycle of insomnia, yes. The worry about sleep becomes the thing keeping you awake. It requires a level of trust in your surroundings, trust in yourself to surrender to sleep.
That reframes it quite a bit. It's not just about being tired. It's about feeling secure enough to let go.
Precisely. You see it in children needing comfort to fall asleep. You see it in trauma survivors, like those with PTSD, who often have terrible insomnia or nightmares because sleep doesn't feel safe. Even things like loneliness can impact if feeling isolated might subconsciously trigger a need for hypervigilance.
Wow. Sleep is much more emotional than I realized.
It's deeply tied to our emotional state and sense of security. Which brings us to insomnia itself, this incredibly common problem.
Yeah, you hear stats like 30% of adults experiencing symptoms. That's huge.
It is. It's a massive public health issue, whether it's trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, or waking up too early and not feeling rested. And it's not just an occasional bad night for many people. It can be chronic and debilitating.
And the consequences go way beyond just feeling grumpy, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Long-term sleep deprivation is serious. It's linked to increased risks for a whole host of problems.
Like what?
Mental health issues like depression and anxiety are strongly correlated. There are links to weight gain, obesity, type 2 diabetes, due to impacts on metabolism and hormones, increased risk of cardiovascular problems like high blood pressure, heart attack, stroke, cognitive issues too, problems with memory, focus, decision-making. It weakens the immune system, making you more susceptible to infections, and some large-scale studies even suggest chronic poor sleep is associated with a shorter lifespan.
That's a sobering. It really underscores how vital sleep is.
It really does, and yet culturally, sometimes we don't treat it that way, do we?
No, there's almost this badge of honor for running on fumes, the whole hustle culture thing. Needing sleep is sometimes seen as weakness.
It's a really damaging mindset. The science couldn't be clearer. Sleep isn't weakness, it's fuel. It's essential maintenance. Sacrificing sleep doesn't make you more productive in the long run. It makes you less effective, less healthy, and less resilient. We need to reframe sleep as a non-negotiable pillar of health and performance.
Okay, so the problem is real, the consequences are significant, but you said there's good news. It's not hopeless if someone's struggling.
Not at all. The good news is that our relationship with sleep isn't fixed. We can absolutely take steps based on solid science to improve sleep quality and rebuild healthier patterns.
All right, let's hear them. What are the actionable steps people can take?
Okay, number one, and maybe the most powerful, consistency. Try as much as possible to go to bed and wake up around the same time every single day.
Even on weekends?
Even on weekends, yes. Or at least keep the difference minimal. This really helps stabilize your circadian rhythm. It's fundamental.
Okay, consistency. What else?
Manage your light exposure. Get bright light, ideally sunlight, soon after waking up. This helps anchor your clock. And conversely, dim the lights in the evening.
And avoid those screens we talked about before bed.
Definitely. Minimize screen time in the hour or two before bed. If you absolutely must use them, use night mode settings or blue light filtering apps or glasses.
Got it. Light management. Next.
Watch the caffeine. For most people, avoiding caffeine after about 2 p.m. is a good rule of thumb, given its long half-life. And be aware of hidden caffeine in things like some teas, sodas, even chocolate.
Okay, caffeine cutoff. Makes sense.
Create a wind-down routine. This is crucial. Dedicate the last 30-60 minutes before bed to relaxing activities that signal to your brain it's time to switch gears.
What kind of activities?
Whatever works for you, but keep it calm. Reading a physical book, gentle stretching, listening to calming music or a podcast, journaling, taking a warm bath, not too hot, something predictable and relaxing.
So creating a buffer zone between the busy day and sleep.
Exactly. And optimize your bedroom environment. Make it as dark, cool, and quiet as possible.
Dark, cool, quiet. The sleep cave essentials.
Right. Blackout curtains can be great, earplugs or a white noise machine if noise is an issue. Keep the temperature comfortably cool. Most studies suggest somewhere between 60-67 degrees Fahrenheit or about 15-19 Celsius is optimal for sleep.
Cool temperature. Noted. Anything else for the bedroom?
Try to reserve the bed primarily for sleep and intimacy. Avoid working, eating, or watching intense TV in bed. You want your brain to strongly associate your bed with sleep.
Makes sense. What about diet?
Avoid heavy meals and excessive alcohol close to bedtime. Alcohol might make you feel drowsy initially, but it significantly disrupts sleep quality later in the night, especially REM sleep.
Right. Less deep sleep, more fragmented sleep.
Exactly. And if you do find yourself lying awake in bed for, say, more than 20 minutes, getting frustrated,
Yeah. What then?
get out of bed, go to another room, keep the lights dim, and do something quiet and relaxing. Read a boring book, listen to soft music until you feel genuinely sleepy again, and then go back to bed. Staying in bed stressing about not sleeping just reinforces the bed as a place of frustration.
That takes discipline, but I can see the logic. Break the association.
It really helps break that negative cycle. And finally, maybe the most important piece of advice.
Yes.
Practice self-compassion. Some nights will be better than others. Don't beat yourself up over one bad night. Focus on the overall pattern and the positive habits you're building. Stressing about sleep is counterproductive. Aim for consistency, not perfection.
That's a really crucial reminder. It takes the pressure off. Focus on the journey, the trend.
Exactly. It's about gradually improving your relationship with sleep.
This has been incredibly insightful. It really shifts the perspective on sleep from just a passive downtime to this incredibly active, vital, and frankly, fascinating process.
It truly is. And maybe in our constantly demanding world, we can start to see sleep not just as necessary, but as, well, almost a sacred act.
Sacred. How do you mean?
Well, it's a return to ourselves, isn't it? A disconnection from the noise and the demands, a surrender to our body's natural rhythms. It's a space for quiet restoration, physical and mental.
A sanctuary, like you said about the bedroom.
Yeah. In a culture that prizes productivity above almost everything, choosing to prioritize sleep, to embrace that stillness and vulnerability, is quite a powerful act of self-care.
So the invitation is to see our bed not just as furniture, but as a place of refuge.
Exactly. And to trust our body's innate intelligence. It knows how to rest if we give it the right conditions and get out of its way. Remember, sleep isn't something you have to earn by being productive enough. It's something you inherently deserve simply because you're alive. It's fundamental to being human.